Hello, everyone. My name is Gregory Q. Jenkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Quintasia Studios, and this is the Quintasia Podcast. So this week, I have a new guest to the podcast, and I'm happy to introduce him to all of you. If memory serves, I believe we met through the Business Council of Westchester. That's how we got to know each other. And, I definitely one of the individuals that I wanted to get on the show because I think you will find his story very inspiring. And so without further ado, I would like to welcome Donvil Collins to the podcast. Hi, Donvil. Thank you,
Gregory, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me on this, and I'm glad to be here.
Now, Donvil is the founder and CEO of VeeKast, and I'm going to have him, we'll start the conversation off by asking Donvil, tell us a little bit about VeeKast and what you guys do.
All right, cool. Well, at VeeKast, we're really passionate about the kind of work that we do. And the way how we define it is we're experts or professionals at engaging emotions through media, whether it be video production media, event, audiovisual media. We find ourselves to be experts at engaging target viewers' emotions and target participant emotions through those technologies and personalities and et cetera.
And I know that just a little trivia here. I know that back when I had, and I still want to do it, I wanted to have an event at the Atlantic City Convention Center. And, I through our connections at the BCW, I believe it was actually Dr. Marsha Gordon who said, "Oh, no, you should meet Donvil. He's great." And I believe, if I remember correctly, that's how. And then we started this odyssey of trying to see what that would take to pull that off. And interestingly enough, folks, to rent the building cost a lot less money than to feed people. that was the biggest cost that I was like, whoa.
How did you rent? Yeah, it's only this cost.
Right. Like to rent the building was like, really? That's it? Okay, I can do that. But to feed people, oh man. That was, but anyway. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how did you wind up where you are today? I think that's an inspirational story especially for those out there who are trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And you never know how things you do early on can impact you later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily now, at this stage, we're a team of nearly 30 of us. With a team of 10 core people and then 20 people that come in for the different pieces of the projects and things that we do to help our clients. And it's at that point now, but when I started, it was just me, and I did everything. And where that started was I actually started the business when I was in college. But in video production, I started much sooner, much younger. So it all started back when I was in my early teens, when I was 13, and my church needed someone to do the video production for their TV program. And there was no one at our church that already had that knowledge. They were prior hiring someone from a local TV network to come in and do the church's TV program. But that person had a child that they needed to take a break from production and go take care of the child. And the church was like, okay, well, we need someone to do it. And we found out, the church found out at least, that there was the TV network provided a training program for to for people to become producers and to be able to produce shows on the TV network. At that time, I was young, but when they were hiring that person that was coming all the time, I was always behind her, asking her questions, being inquisitive about everything that was happening, because it always intrigued me, but I wasn't in the business quite yet. But once that opportunity came, my church said, okay, who's interested in doing it? Two of the adults said that they would do it, and I said I want to do it. But of course, they couldn't just send me because I was 13. Technically, I was underage for the program, but the program, they accepted me. I was able to go, and the two people. So I went, did the training program, and became a certified TV producer within a few months of that network, and very young. And I think at the time I was the youngest TV producer on the network at the time. And after that, started producing my church's TV shows, was really passionate about it. Even though the three of us had done the training program together, the church and others realized quickly that I picked up the most quickly and understood the most quickly and had the most vast knowledge of everything. So even though they started out making one of them the head, eventually within like a year and a half, I became the head of that department, where they reported to me as well. And then by the time 4 years came, then it became a team of 20 people, where we were broadcasting not only now on that local network, we were broadcasting to networks around the world, to networks that broadcast to nearly 100 million people. So that's how I got into the business. But all of that was before I was 18, before I had even registered a business. And by the time I was graduating high school, I was already at that point not only producing that church's TV programs. I had, I believe at the time, maybe 6 churches that were doing international TV shows that I was producing all of their shows. And by the time I was graduating high school, going to college, I know I wanted to go and study deeper in film, because that training program at the time, of course, was a TV broadcasting training program. And I wanted to get more into film and higher level production, or video production, if you will. And so I went to study that. And it was while I was in college that I decided to register the business. And the primary reason I registered it early on was really primarily so I can be able to write off all the things that I would never write off. But then later on realized how important the company is for branding and everything, and started to really work on not only doing good work, but representing ourselves as a brand for the level of work that we do. And then pretty much when I graduated college, I got married like a year after I graduated college, and shortly after that moved into Westchester. And that's how how the business really started to get its footing in Westchester. It was right after that move where I started to really aim to grow the business from that perspective, where we were no longer really doing churches as much anymore. At that time, when the business started, we were still doing the churches, but not as much. And then I had started doing weddings and sweet 16s and all of that. But I hated that terribly, doing that part of video production. And my first corporate client, which was a project for Malibu Rum, where they hired us to go out to Atlantic City and film an event, a corporate event that they were having. And that experience immediately, as soon as I came back, did the job, sent it, they paid quickly, I immediately decided I'm done with weddings. And I'm going to stick to doing corporate video work. And anyone that called me for weddings afterward, I said, unfortunately, I don't do that anymore. And then that's where I really honed in on focus on, okay, let's grow this aspect of the business. And here we are today. essentially.
Wow. I mean, having the opportunity to become a trained and certified producer, you know, as a young team, that's quite impressive, but not surprising. Having gotten to come to know you and I um I can see that, you're a person that has vision, you follow after that vision, and that's good. I'm just thinking to myself, the way life is, I mean, how I don't want to use the word random, but there were a lot of connections that had to happen for you to wind up on the path. Like, for instance, you were a member of that church that you were a part of. So that was the first connection. Your church decided that, hey, we want to do television broadcasts. That was the second thing. All of those things had to come together, but it led to this opportunity where you're at now.
Yeah.
And it's so I say this to say to anyone, especially our younger viewers out there who are watching, in terms of always be present, always be mindful. You don't know when opportunity is going to show itself. But always be studious, always be like Donvil was, asking questions, because you don't know where that could lead to. It may lead to nothing, but it may lead to something, and you never know. So takes whatever you're going to be about it seriously. Is
Yeah.
is my advice to anyone out there who's looking.
Definitely, I
So
would say, like, stay curious. It's just
yeah.
like, always stay curious, stay inquisitive, and as I like to tell people, ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. The most someone can tell you is no, leave me alone. But you didn't lose anything if they told you
Right.
that. Relax. Yeah.
And I found that has served me well. And you will, most people um, are happy when they are asked a question about their expertise, and they have a chance to share their expertise. And I have certainly put that to use. I won't drop any names right now, but in the in the endeavors that I'm doing right now, I have a person that I'm communicating with. I did not know this person. I reached out to him on LinkedIn. I figured, what the heck? I don't know. Yeah, I do know what, because he was on a list of people that I was trying to communicate with, looking for institutional investors. He is no longer in that position that he once held, and it was a senior position at a major, um, very large insurance company.
Mm,
And but I reached out to him, and he responded, and he has been, gracious, graciously advising me ever since. So you never know, who who's going to respond, but it doesn't hurt you to ask the question. I hear this all the time when people are trying to get certain celebrities to be in their projects and whatnot.
yeah.
Um, if you can get directly to this, that's usually the problem. It's usually you can't get directly to the celebrity. You're going through a gatekeeper. But if you have an opportunity, and you develop some sort of connection, it never hurts to ask. And
Yeah.
you never know who will say yes, because if they like the project that you're in, they may say yes. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
you definitely should, be inquisitive, ask questions. Don't be afraid. Um, if I would pivot now, I'm trying to think of, so where do you see, what's your hope for your company? What's the direction? What's your goal? What are you striving for?
Well, I mean, it's a very clear one for us. We actually have a drawing board that we actually, even a drawing that we have on the wall in our office for our staff, where we make sure that every employee that joins our team sees that drawing. We actually have a video that I recorded years ago explaining that drawing. So to ensure that everyone that joins the team buys into the big vision of where we're going. And that really is significantly important for us to do at the start of everyone joining our team, because it helps them to have that buy-in and that vision themselves, so that some of the things that you got to work out, they would work it out on their own, because they know what we're aiming for. They know what kinks or what things need to be improved, what needs to be smoothened, what needs to be better, what we need to change, because they're like, if we're aiming for that, this that we're doing is not going to help us get there, you know? So everybody does that. But what that is, and the reason I say drawing is because I actually had a dream too, as a in my late teens, seeing the company, seeing what we were doing and all of that. And when I started the company, I didn't remember anything about the dream really. It's my mother, once we started to build the company, my mother had saved this drawing that drew what I saw in the dream and brought it to me and said, look, do you remember this? You drew this when you were a teenager. And I saw it, I was like, whoa, I totally forgot about that. And then it's literally almost exactly what we're doing right now. So I made sure once you gave it to me, we put it on the canvas, and I know a huge canvas, and put it on the wall in the office. But essentially what it is, we want to be the number one, or one of the leading companies in the east in the Eastern USA, helping clients to use video production and audio visual event production and technology to be known as one of the best at really engaging emotions through those things. There's talent. There's ways you can be talented. You can know the technology. You can be super smart. But where we find we're the best, one of the best in Westchester, if not the best, is, and we see ourselves as the best, to be honest, to be unashamed in saying that we're the best storytellers and emotion engagers. Is one of the reasons why, even for that, we also target nonprofits a lot. I think a lot of that roots come from the fact that I worked a lot with churches initially, and you had to know how to engage people's emotions from that aspect. And I think it transferred over where a lot of nonprofits engage with the kind of work that we do. Just even this week alone, I got 2 long thank you messages from a couple clients who were just overjoyed by the result and the outcome that happened at their gala event, where people were in tears. And our team, once we get that email, we're like high-fiving each other, like, yeah, it worked, you know? But that's the thing is, goal-wise, we want to be known in the East as, if you want to really tap into people's emotions, even when they were fighting and they didn't want to, we want to be known as the team to work with, whether it be for their videos that they're producing, for the commercials they're producing, or for even the audio-visual technology that's being used at the event. The VeeKast team knows how to get people to support what you're doing or want to buy into what you're doing. We want to be number one at that.
Well, I have no doubt that you will achieve that goal, if you're not there already.
We're not there yet, but we're on our way. We're definitely trying.
Definitely, my personal experience with the BCW, for them to recommend you, that said a lot right there. When they say, "Oh, you should definitely meet this person," and I would definitely, anyone out there, if you're listening, and you happen to have a business, and you need to come up with some sort of emotionally engaging, audio visual. This is the gentleman right here you should be talking to. I can tell you that. What is the biggest lesson? Well, let me preface the question this way. Thinking back to your most challenging project that you've ever done, what was the biggest lesson that came out from that project? And how did it change, or did it change how you approached, doing a similar project in the future? Like how, and the reason why I'm asking that question is, again, I want people to know who are thinking about doing this. If you're thinking about starting your business, there's always unexpected things that come up. But the people that I see being successful are the people that know how to pivot or how to make a modification, when things come up. Like for you, a big pivot was COVID, and as you know, not a lot of businesses didn't survive out of there. So, what was the biggest challenge that you've ever faced, and how did it change what you do, if it did?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring up two. So the first one is much shorter, and then I'll dive into the COVID one. But one of the first initial challenges that I had in the business was during the time when I did a lot of just about everything, mostly myself. Sometimes I would bring in people, but mostly everything myself. At that time, one of the things that I felt at the time was that I was doing all I could. I felt like I was pushing and I was trying to get this business to take off even more, but I was frustrated quite a bit because it seemed like, okay, this is not moving as fast as I'd like, and everything. And my wife is a big supporter of mine, but she's always said, I think you can do more. But at that time in the business, I still wasn't making enough money to really be the sole income of our household. I barely made what an employee at McDonald's would make, And so people would see like the CEO, Debo Media Inc., which is our registered name, but our DBA that we changed it to in 2013 is VeeKast. But it would be like, CEO, and it was just like, CEO doesn't mean much in my mind. I'm like, I need to be making some money. Right? But that big change at that time, what happened is my wife left her job, and she was the main person paying all the bills. And we had a daughter. Now we have four, but at that time we had a young baby girl. Mm. And I got so scared. I was terrified because there's no crutch anymore. It's sink or swim at this point. And over the next year, I made more money than I had ever made prior to that. I more than doubled what I was making prior. And after the fact, and I look back, I was just like, so what in the world? I thought I was working pretty hard before. Like, it said to me that when you think you're doing enough, you're not. You gotta dive. And I saw a video later on in life, but that was based on this principle of always function and run your business like it's the last day. It's the last day. It's the last thing. It's there's nothing left, and you're trying to survive. So if you run the business that way, you'll find things and ways to grow the business that just wasn't a consideration before. So that was my first lesson. So it's just to function and run the business in this way. The next big thing, of course, for me was COVID. COVID was, as it was for a lot of business, was a really scary time for us. And at that time, we had less employees than we have now, but I knew that there are a couple families that rely on the income that they're getting from the business. I had been in our house, and we had bought our house, and we had been in it for, at that time, I think maybe 3 years or 2 to 3 years, somewhere around there. And COVID came, and I was scared as ever because we were in our best year. We had just been coming out and just signed some really huge contracts. The biggest contracts we had ever signed had these shoot dates scheduled, super excited. Then this came, then like one after the other, clients started calling and canceling contract. There's no way that we could do this, no way we could do that. And we got to the point where we had nothing left. We were finishing editing on what we had already filmed, and we just had to finish those. And then we were just like, then what? We have nothing in the pipeline. Everyone has shut down. And then on top of it, then you're all home. So it came to the point where we're like, what are we going to do? And there has to be something. And I remember at the time too, or like I prayed heavily too and said to God, like, what in the world? You showed me, right, this dream of where we're going to be. This can't be it, because this would die if this is it. And there has to be a way out of this. And come to it, the team came together. And I gave them an assurance. It was a crazy thing to do, but I gave them assurance that I'm not going to be laying them off and letting them go, as a lot of companies were doing, and because they had to, right? Because they didn't see where it was going to come from. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. If you all want to stay here, we want to be here, I want to be here. Let's all brainstorm, let's think, let's do something about this. And we sat down, we brainstormed and figured, like, what can we do? What value do we have? What can we do? And one of the things that came out of that was in order for us to figure out how we can help clients, is to ask them straight up and tell them, we know you're in a different place. You're not going to be able to hold that event we help you with every year. That video we usually produce for you or whatever, we can't go and shoot it in person. So we have to find out what is the biggest need that you have? What is the biggest challenges? So we went on a campaign over the next 2 months, just speaking to multiple clients and partners and agencies that we worked with, trying to find out what the pain point is and to figure out whether we can help in any sort of shape or way or form. And once we went through a lot of those conversations, one of the biggest pain points we saw was that people were trying to hold their events, especially for the nonprofits, that for them, their annual galas were, a lot of the time, was a huge part of their annual budget to even keep the organization afloat. We realized, well, if we could find a way to help them hold those events and still raise a boatload of money, they will be eternally grateful for us. How can we help with that? And we have to then look at our expertise, look at what we have. Sometimes there's things that you do, but maybe in one point of time, it's not as valued, but in another period of time, it is quite valued. It is valuable. And then, so from that, what we found was, is that something that we did in the past, and it was in our line item of things that we can offer, but it was never an important thing, is something we did every once in a while, which was streaming the events. We realized, well, we can help you host and stream an event a professional way as our core service. And we realized we just need to help these clients still hold their event, hold it online, and still raise the money that they need. And one of the things that was unique with us is that we have a proprietary technology called the Fundometer. It's a fundraising thermometer specifically for nonprofits, and we built it from the ground up. And we've always been helping clients since back in 2013 with this every year as well. So we knew what a lot of the need was, and we said, okay, well, let's bring all of those expertise together, including some services that we don't use often, and realize that will be the primary service. And so we took all that feedback, took a look at our services and brought it together, and it became VertEvent Pro, which is essentially a virtual event production service that we branded, labeled it, and that we decided to move forward with it. But essentially, that became the main thing that we did for the next couple of years as everyone was on lockdown. And that service in and of itself is what more than doubled the company. So from the time we started that until now, we're like nearly triple what we were doing at the time.
Wow.
And it was simply that pivot. And I think a lot of it came from asking questions, really diving into the clients and figuring out, what do you need? Where's your biggest pain point? What's your biggest challenge? What are you worrying about? What makes you sleepless at night? And then figuring out, okay, well, here's the things that they're worrying about. Can we help them in some way? We could do this, we could do that. This looks like a good thing. Put it together, present it back to them. Once we presented it to them, they're like, you guys could do that? Yeah, absolutely. It was like a win-win. And we realized after we started doing it is that we were at first just offering it to our clients that we had already previously worked with in previous years. But then we realized, well, this is virtual, it's online. Nonprofits around the country, and not only nonprofits, corporations as well, are having this problem of needing to hold their events and can't do it. So we're like, no, we can do this from anywhere. The way we do it was very different than how some others did it, where we did it without as much resources necessary, but at a higher level, quality level, just because of our experience. And we ended up just garnering a whole lot of clients nationwide and providing that service. Well, we were one of the leading companies in the country, just providing high quality virtual events during that time. So that's how we ended up growing and doing so many of them. And that's the biggest thing that I would say that's the hardest time we had, and that hardest time figuring out how to flip it on its head and make the hard time be in our benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can certainly trying to think of the right word here. I can certainly sympathize is not the right word, but that's the only thing I can with that, because that's where I'm at with my company now. In that, I've always had a day job, which helped pay for things, but I no longer have that now. So now I need the company to start generating enough revenue. One, for me to live, but two, I need to have like a permanent team now, to work with, so to grow the company. And that's what I'm racking my brains out, is what value can I add that, and I have a network that I can leverage. So what is it that we can do, to that people, like you said, what pain point can we address for people who are in this, and understanding what's happening, particularly in the state of New York. And I know the industry is wide, but we're located in New York, and I'm trying to get a pulse of what's happening in New York. And there's definitely some trends which are not in our favor that are happening, but how can we take those trends and offer value to companies and figure out a way to survive? That's what everyone's going to have to do, in any business. So I always admire people who see that challenge, and are able to pivot, and survive. And I think there are several inflection points in every company where you're going to have to be able to do that if you're going to survive long term. You can never rest on your laurels and say, "Woo, we've made it, we're good." You're always, like you said, always operating as if this was your last day. So I think that was sage advice.
And it's easy to lose track of that, I feel, too, is because even in today, sometimes you become, I can easily become complacent. And then at some point I have to realize, like, hey, like, don't chill. Remember where we're going, or what the goal is. And we're not going to go there on you enjoying the fruits of doing better than we were, right? You have to still operate like it's your last day if you want to keep that momentum going. And so that's sometimes is necessary. And I think a big part of that, how I try to keep my head in that space, is to have people around me that hold me accountable to that. And sometimes it's necessary. Like my wife is one of those people. She's super unapologetic, which I love. It's one of the reasons I love our relationship, but she's very straightforward. And so sometime when you're like, want to chill, she will be like, how can we? This is what's next, right? And not only her, but my first employee, who I'm not sure if you met, but Daniel, he's one of those people that he's just one of those very straightforward people. To sugarcoat is just straightforward, right? And sometimes people can be rubbed by those people, but I find value in that because I'm more of a person that knows how to button up something and make it look and give you it in a nice, beautiful pie. He said, "Look, this is really what's inside. Do you want it or not?" And that sometimes brings us back to earth, if you will. You need those type of people sometimes around. Keep you grounded.
For me, that's turning out to be my sister. Whenever I start straying away from what I said that I wanted to do and accomplish, she'll remind me of it's like, well, if you quit now, all that work that you did, everything you went through will be for nothing. And so she's the one that holds me accountable. And I don't know how that happened, where that she's, there are times, especially when I'm at a low point, where she believes more in this dream than I do. And but I think what motivates her is she sees the happiest that she's ever seen me is when I'm pursuing this goal. Sure, there are times when things are not going great and there's going to be challenges, but overall the things that I've learned, I would have never had a chance to. I mean, I'm working on a short film right now, and we're working with AI to do some of the visual effects. That's not something that I ever thought that I would be doing. But it's a creature of necessity. We needed to do something that was impactful, but didn't cost a lot. And while I'm not in favor and will never replace real actors with AI actors, that's not me. But visual effects, sure. I will. So we're trying it out. We're seeing how it looks. We're trying out a new storyline. We'll see where it goes. Maybe that might turn into something, either a feature film or a TV show or whatever. But that's what you have to do, is just experiment and not be afraid to try new things. And that's what we're doing. So, well, I mean, you may not know it, but I can't speak for anybody else in the other. Actually, this conversation was inspirational to me. So I thank you for sharing your story. And of course, we wish you continued success. Can't wait to see what's next for you and for VeeKast and all the people that you have with you. I hope everyone listening to this conversation that you got something from it today. Again, keep a lookout for this gentleman. I do believe you'll be hearing more from him in the very near future. So I want to thank everyone. You have been listening and or watching the Quintasia podcast, and with my guest today, Donvil Collins. And we've had a great conversation. So I want to say to everyone, thank you. Bye-bye for now, and see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.